to the Stars, and my guest today is Amy Shapiro from New Age Sages, and we want to welcome you to our live podcast, The State of the Stars, and we are hoping that you're all doing good and want to wish you all a happy new year. In this podcast, we're going to be taking a look at the next 4 years of astrology for the United States of America. We'll be talking about some of the more significant aspects, including the Pluto return, which is basically a 246-year cycle. And we've never experienced this here in the United States, and so it's very significant. Also, we're going to be talking about the Neptune square the nodes of fate that's playing out right now into the end of January. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about Saturn square Uranus, and of course, we'll take a look at the United States progress chart and where we are at and what phase we're in and the bigger context of things. Then we're going to take a look at the chart for the inauguration, which is tomorrow at 12 noon. And this is pretty much the birth chart of the next 4 years from a government political context. And before we get started, I do have some disclaimers to say. And, this is, everyone's heard a lot of hype about this being the age of Aquarius with Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. And pretty much, I do not practice what they call New Age astrology. And, I'm a truth teller, and we're going to read the chart, all good, bad, and ugly. And we're going to also provide support for some of the darker aspects, as well as, discuss the lighter aspects, because that's the true reality. And Amy and I have in the past worked together quite a few times, and we always talk about all aspects of the chart. And Amy had said something earlier. Amy, do you want to repeat that?
Oh, there was so much. What is it you're thinking?
Oh, about the Aquarius being the age of truth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we are for sure in a moment of truth in this country and in the world. And with so much energy now passing through Aquarius, whether you think the Aquarian age has begun or not, it's secondary. The fact is that we all need to have clear vision, clear facts. And I think we're going to be really immersing ourselves as a society in a lot of truth that is going to be an awakening, as we had discussed earlier. So I think that's a big keynote for what we're heading into.
Right. I agree with you on that. And Saturn and Aquarius, Saturn is a planet of limitation, of karma, of rules, regulations. It's the planet that speaks of the perimeters or the boundaries that are, present. And with it being an Aquarius, it really doesn't mean freedom. It means that we're working on finding collectively a way to all work together. And so I think that, our objective and what the objective is that we're seeing play out in the world. And when we look at the stars and the planets, we do see a correlation. So, for example, Saturn moved into Aquarius back in the spring of 2020, and what we saw was lockdowns. So Aquarius is, typically a very social energy. And so we have social limitations, social restrictions. Now Saturn is back in Aquarius, and we're not really seeing freedom. We're seeing lots of limitations, more rules, more regulations, more avenues where we have to conform. And Saturn in Aquarius, so typically we're working on that. And, Aquarius does have a level of freedom to it, but when it's in Saturn, I have Saturn in my birth chart in Aquarius. So it's been exactly that, it's been a lifetime of restructuring or building or working hard toward realizing what is best for all. And so Pluto is
I
also.
can add a little bit to that if you want, Andrea.
Sure.
Because, yeah, I mean, you live, that's your life. You have Aquarius so strongly featured with Saturn in it. Isabel Hickey also had Saturn and Aquarius. I think Oscar Adler also had Saturn and Aquarius. So it's a great sign for learning astrology and teaching astrology and being, focused on it in a very crystallized way, in a good crystallized way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is also about like-mindedness, because we think of Aquarius as a sign of friendship. And so it's about who can we on a practical level connect with in a like-minded fashion, who's our, not just the tribe per se of people that we were born into, but the group of people that we choose to be with. And so I think, Saturn being the planet of responsibility, it really says, and Aquarius being associated with choice, it's not so much external freedom, it's freedom of mind,
Mm-hmm.
And the freedom to be able to test knowledge, to say, well, wait a minute, does this work in reality? They say the proof is in the pudding, to be able to take information and say, well, wait a minute, how does this apply to my life? Can I use this information? Does this, make sense in a very concrete way?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important that people recognize we're not asking anybody to just take our word for it. Isabel would say that often, don't take my word for it. Test it out. See if it works. And that's what Saturn's about, being very pragmatic. Does this work? And so we'll all be, on that theme as well. Well, where's the proof? Let's see the science. Let's see the research. Let's see the proof. And Saturn, as many of our listeners may or may not know, is a co-ruler of Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it is an energy that's limiting, it's also like the skeleton. It gives structure.
Yeah.
It allows us to function. If we didn't have a skeleton, we'd be a mess.
Right. Right.
And so it gives us the structure. And so it's about how do we structure knowledge as well,
Right.
and make sure that what we're doing is based on facts and clear-sighted knowledge.
I also think it's about the groups of people realizing that we're all one, and that our level of what our responsibility is in that, with Saturn and Aquarius. And I want to talk about, I'm going to share the screen because I want to, just kind of talk about the inauguration chart here in just a minute. Just want to cover a couple more things that are important that I'm going to put the chart up here very soon and we can talk about. So if you're somebody that is very, very sensitive and you can't hear things that are not so easy to maneuver, you might want to censor your, your participation in the video, because basically what we're talking about is honestly the next 4 years, and it doesn't look easy on many fronts, but there's a lot of very good aspects about this, and in that I think that we're all awakening to what's real, what's what we would call reality. And so when looking at these different charts, we're going to be showing you some things that are pretty obvious and that are happening in the world presently. And I think this is just my opinion, that and I'm remaining very non-biased in this podcast. And I truly don't think that once Trump is out of the picture that everything is magically going to be better based upon the astrology charts and the influences that we're currently dealing with and in the future. And like I said earlier, there's going to be an awakening. And now with that said, just understand that this is meant to be right now. The state of the stars influences the state that we are in, because the stars, the planets surround us, and we, from our perspective on Earth, our home, are influenced by what happens around us. Just as when you're in your home, you're influenced by your neighbors and what they do, or wherever you are. So whatever plays out over this next 4 years is meant to be for a reason. that we may not be able to understand from our limited perspectives. And sometimes these darker phases that humanity goes through are important precursors to a whole new paradigm ahead of us. So this is mainly what we're going to be talking about today in context for the United States. So that would be something that we want to all keep in mind. And there's still going to be some things that we are going to be talking about that could also apply to the world in general, but this will mainly be about the United States. So I would encourage everyone to keep the faith, have faith. Everything is playing out for a reason. Go along with it. If you can flow with these changes, and the less resistance that you put up, the easier it's going to be. Because these things are basically faded with this energy that's that's surrounding us, influencing us right now. And if you're somebody who's into astrology, you may find that you're a little bit more enlightened, and that you see things from a different perspective than the average person, because the average person is not going to be dealing with this energy very well for the next 4 years. So let's start here with this chart of the inauguration, the birth chart of the next inauguration. And I have it set for January 20th, which is tomorrow, 12 noon in Washington, D.C. This is the official time for the next administration to start. So this is the birth chart. It's not easy to look at. There's some very rare things happening here. This is a chart that we've never seen in our lifetimes. So I'm going to put that chart up on the screen right now. Let me just come up here and share this with you. Share my screen so Amy can see the chart as well. And yep. Can you see it? Okay, so we have this is January 20th, 2021 in the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. at 12 noon. And the first thing that, I see here is that the moon is void of course. And when the moon is void of course, if you try to start something new, typically whatever it is that you started new, you end up having to go and redo. It's truly a time of to be meditating, relaxing, enjoying just the flow of things, not starting something new. Typically, it's a great time for organization. I actually have a page here on my website I'd like to share about the void of course moon. And so unexpected results are expected. Void of course typically, so void of course motion is when the moon reaches the end degrees of the zodiac sign that it has been traveling through. And we're at that 29 degrees, and you can see it right here, 29 degrees and 31 minutes. And it just came past a square with Pluto. So from an emotional standpoint, from a standpoint of the public, which is the moon in the chart, and it's also in the 12th house here, which is, there's a lot that's unseen, unknown, that's hidden at this time from the public. So void of course means typically nothing will come of it. So it can also create unexpected results. We can experience delays and frustrations. And I want to point out that when Obama was inaugurated, the moon was void of course the first time. And what happened was he had to go through a second inauguration. Something was wrong about what was said. Something was out of order. It was unexpected. So he ended up having to do it again, which is very typical of the moon void of course. Do you want to add anything, Amy?
Sure. I was saying earlier before we started on the live call that the void of course moon, you could use the analogy that it's a little bit like the dark of the moon, which we experience every month. But we experience a void of course of moon every couple of days. And it really does mean that somehow maybe the work is finished more than beginning.
That's
and
right.
One of the things I would propose about this incoming administration, well, two things that to me are very correlated to this. One is that because we are in the middle of an impeachment process, the old administration really isn't finished with us. Trump may be technically out of power as of noon on tomorrow, but the business involving him and what has happened under his administration is not finished. And it's going to drag on. Hopefully it'll be faster rather than slower, but we are under the burden of that impeachment trial. And so there is a sense that the old administration is not finished until that trial is finished. Mm-hmm. Another thing I want to share, because it just feels such a strong intuition about it. This was not Biden's first run to become president. And so the void, of course, to me feels almost like in two different ways. He's finishing old business for himself. He knows a lot about what led up to the last administration because he was in the previous administration, watching it from within. Mm-hmm. And so there is so much the public does not yet know. And I do feel Biden is coming in with this sense of not so much what he wants to do, but what he wants to undo from the last 4 years. And we've been hearing that in the news, that he has a huge agenda of things he needs to undo. So to me, that's also part of the void, of course, moon, this sense of, okay, some of it he may want to do a lot of new things, but he's still dealing with the past and what he has, in his mind from the past.
What I think, Amy, about this void, of course, because it is going to square Pluto early in the morning, it's going to square Pluto. So I think that any delays that happen right now are truly a protective type of energy. And if this inauguration is delayed because of this void, of course, it is truly something that is it's like an unseen protection. And mm-hmm. people are wondering, the moon is in Aries. People are wondering, what does this mean to me? Aries is about the self and about our self-desires. And so if there is a delay because the moon goes into Taurus at exactly 1 p.m. Yeah. So if there are delays, it is actually a divine intervention.
Right. So we'll see it unfold however it will. Mm-hmm. While moon is in Aries, emotions are heightened. There's mm-hmm. no question about that. Aries is a very active fire sign. It's the lit fire, the spark that lights the engine. Mm-hmm. So emotions are running very, very high right now. And I would just add too, there's a lot of squares in this chart. The Mars conjunct Uranus squaring the Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn. Moon having finished the square to Pluto is just coming out of that, but it's coming into the square to the Sun. So it's right between those squares. And then on top of it, Pluto is very tightly squaring Eris. And, as we've said before, not to mention, of course, we should mention the Neptune squaring the nodes. And people should not be afraid of squares, but to recognize squares to me represent the need for course correction, the need to change course. I've used this analogy before, where you just put your hand in a right angle and you see if you're going along in one direction and you're dealing with a square, you have to stop and change course. And so I think there's a lot of high expectations right now that that's what this administration is. It's going to be a huge course change, and we will be seeing that played out on many, many levels.
Yeah, and you know what I think about this? When I look at squares, I look at them of a time of growth of the universe and the planets. Their conversation, and we have a conversation here going on quite interestingly between Saturn is on one side of the sun and Pluto is on the other side of the sun. The sun typically represents the like the president or the leader or the one in charge. And we see Saturn on one side and Pluto on the other. So, and the sun in Aquarius is in its detriment. It's not a good place for the sun to be. So Saturn would indicate limitations, control. Typically Saturn is the leader. So Saturn is stronger than the sun here. And
We also see with the Mars-Uranus conjunction in that square, we
mhm,
are seeing a massive show of force,
mhm,
because Taurus is the serpent power contained and held in. It's
mhm,
the sense of gravity that pulls us down and holds us to the earth. And so there is a massive show of force with that Mars conjunct Uranus, which otherwise could be quite violent, to show anybody who might want to cause trouble, that's not going to be unresponded to.
right. I would say though that it's almost like we've got, intuitively I see this that Saturn and Jupiter. Jupiter is the truth. Jupiter is discovery. Jupiter is, the law. It is our belief systems. And you see Jupiter and Saturn here together. So it's almost like there's a status quo thing going on here. These two right beside each other. One's bringing limitations, hard work, restriction, and the other one's saying we're expanding in a very as communities, as societies, any type of group is, there's going to be a voice that wants to be heard of truth.
Well,
And
interesting too, Andrea.
Saturn beside it and on the side of the sun here, I think it's limiting the light of the sun to be able to shine brightly because when we say that the sun is in detriment when it's in Aquarius, it's because the sun is meant to be seen, to be recognized, to be noticed. And when you put it in the sign of Aquarius, it's acting on the behalf of the whole. But it's very, very stressed down here to Uranus and Mars. There's a lot going on that we don't even know about.
Right. Yeah,
And Pluto being here is also about the powers of the government, of our belief systems. It's in the ninth house of our laws, and Pluto is, this is a very, very powerful combination going on here, and even Mars is not in a good place in Taurus.
the thing that concerns me about this square is we do not know the extent, the public does not know the extent to which our government computer systems have been hacked.
Mm-hmm.
And so this Mars-Uranus conjunction squaring Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, which is the sign of not only social media, but information systems, which would involve all of our government computer systems. We don't know if there's going to be a disruption having to do with our computer systems that could, put a monkey wrench in the works. So that's always a possibility because really the public is highly uninformed about what are the real dangers that we're facing right now with the hacks that have been going on.
And I think that, and we've been seeing that, realistically, we've been seeing that. I know my internet and I have Roku TV, and I've not been able to get. It keeps buffering. And so, I think that any type of technology right now there's going to be lots of interruptions. Squares are like, from my point of view, squares is the universe saying, slow it down, take care, take caution, go slow. There's things happening here which are very disruptive. There's things happening here where people are feeling like, I just saw this intuitively, people are combusting because they don't know if they're going to be safe or secure, if their money is going to be safe and secure. And one thing I do though like about this chart is Mercury in Aquarius is trining the North Node. That is very nice. That's an applied trine. So that means that, Mercury in Aquarius is exalted. Right? It's exalted.
Oh yeah, it's very well placed.
Mercury in Aquarius is about, communicating about what's best for everyone, what's best for the whole. And the North Node in Gemini, I see this as there's only 2 trines in this chart. And those are I look at trines as being areas of relief. So I think that there's going to be some truth that is brought out in this new administration, and
Yeah.
that we're going to, that our voices of, as a whole are in some way going to be heard, and that's going to be helpful in its new direction. But we were talking about the Neptune square the nodes earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Neptune in Pisces is squaring the North Node, and the North Node is the direction that we're meant to take, the direction where the most fulfillment is recognized. And, Gemini is the media. Gemini is the news. Gemini is the social one, and it's squaring Neptune. So we don't know what's real and what's not real. We're blocked from having that reality. And it also squares the South Node. So that is going to be very prominent until the end of January.
Well, the other thing too is that, this administration is coming in with a moment of memorializing the 400,000 souls lost to this pandemic.
Yes.
And I think that Neptune squaring the nodes is very related to that. So many people have been lost to us over this last year and yet not fully memorialized. And we need that time of memorialization to help us honor their memories, to help us heal and let go and recognize that, in all humility, there is so much we still do not know and do not have control over. And so I think it's very much connected to the pandemic.
Yes, I agree also. And the other thing that's really interesting about the chart here too is, and I'm going to share the screen again with the chart, is that, let's see here.
I'll just add, Andrea, that the confusion people are feeling over when will I be vaccinated? How reliable is the vaccine? Can I still transmit if I've been vaccinated? To me, that also describes this Neptune squaring the nodes, because Neptune does rule all things pertaining to medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a very strong confusion we're dealing with.
Yeah, there really is. And Neptune does rule over our immune systems. And when you have squares like this, people are especially mutable. There's a tendency to mutable squares and oppositions cause anxiety. And so there's a very deep level of anxiety. And it's interesting, the nodes on this new administration are in the financial houses. The South Node in the house of our banks, our lending institutions, our mortgages, our investments. It rules over other people's money, other people's values, our ability to, transform. And so there's a lot of truth coming out, but we're really not sure what that truth is because of the square to the Neptune and the North Node. We're really not sure what that is.
Well, I think it's going to be clear that we're going to be in debt, because we are seeing one after another business shutting down or going into bankruptcy because they can't sustain themselves anymore without the business, flow. And the stimulus packages that are going to be coming are going to be big, and they are going to add to the national debt. And that's simply inevitable, because otherwise you're going to have people on the street in a state of such destitution that it's going to be a horrible tragedy, more than it already is.
There's many pandemics here other than the COVID. And I think that there's a mutation that's also happening because of these squares that we're going to see, because this is mutable. Mm-hmm. Mutable means that it can take on different forms. It can change and based on the environment. And yes, we are seeing, I think that the financial systems, there's a level of unsettledness, a level of uneasiness that everyone has around the financial sectors. And I would
Yeah.
advise, I think that to find out what the truth is from your standpoint, because, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a financial astrologer, but the picture is pretty easy to see right here that there is deception going on.
Well, also the virus itself is mutating. And so that's another, contributor to the uncertainty that we're all living in. We don't know, how effective the vaccine is going to be against the mutated forms of this virus. So it adds to that heightened anxiety that's already going on.
Right, right. And you know that Neptune being in the 11th house of this chart of the inauguration, the birth of a whole new, president sitting as the, president of the United States. In the 11th house is all about community, your goals, what's best for everyone. And it's very, oriented toward the whole, what's best for the whole, and we don't know. We
Right.
don't know what's best for the whole with Neptune there. Neptune is, I always refer to it as like Pandora's box. And definitely Pandora's box is open right now, and there's all kinds of unsettling energy that's coming out there. And for anybody that doesn't know the story of Pandora's box, you might want to look that up online. But at the very bottom of Pandora's box was hope and faith and belief. So I would say that the best thing to do is for people to practice mindfulness. This is a great time for meditation, for connecting to your, to that divine light that's inside of all of us. This is probably the only place that many people are going to find solace. Or if there's things that you have wanted to do for a long, long time that you can do from the safety of your home and connect with other people, I would say that's going to be a very positive thing. Mindfulness, and I think this is also a really good time for people to look deeper into what their beliefs are. Look deeper for understanding. Look deeper for knowledge and information than you have in the past. And I think that's what this square is a lot about, is for everyone to look deeper. I think everybody's sensitivity is deepening right now. And when you go through change like that, it's typically unsettling. It's uncomfortable. It's not something that feels like it should be. So I would say to everyone watching this, be assured that when we start to come out of this, that everything that you've done in quiet or in solitude is for a reason.
Right. Reconnect.
Right. There's a higher power. There is a higher consciousness that is present here, and it's urging us to do the work right now, to get in touch with what our truth is and what it is that will help us to positively overcome these things. The 8th house is about death, about endings and new beginnings. It's naturally ruled by Scorpio, and Scorpio is the energy that identifies the pearl, so to speak, that's very deeply buried. And so we look for that pearl, and for us, that pearl is the truth. It is our spirituality. It is our belief systems, and that there's many things from the past that are going to come up that are going to be confusing. And what we're meant to do is to work on finding that deeper understanding so that we can look forward. Ultimately, we're not meant to stay in the past. We're meant to look forward. And Gemini is all about gathering information. I'm a Gemini. I looked at my notes last night. I had almost 700 different notes that were present in my phone, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. I obsess over knowledge. That's like my food.
Well, speaking of knowledge, Andrea, I'd like to, before we move on from that chart, I'd like to point out something really important that we haven't touched on yet. I'm sure your listeners will be happy to hear us comment on, which is Neptune is about humility. And so it's not about ego and
Mhm.
self-gratification. And so the more we can all embrace a humble mind, a humble heart, that will give us the grace we need to get through this time. But what gives us a lot of help is that the ruler of the chart is Venus, because Taurus is the rising sign. Venus is not only trine the ascendant, which to me is quite uplifting and very loving, but Venus is also applying to sextile Neptune. And so we're getting grace, we're getting the opportunity to reconnect with our values of, who are we and what do we want moving forward, and how will the world see us? Will the world be on board with the efforts that we'll be making to try and heal ourselves as we try to help the world heal? Because I think that's really the Neptune message, that the world needs healing on every level right now. And so I'm encouraged by that Venus, even though Venus is, not considered to be in its dignified position in Capricorn. We are looking at a new administration and about how do things happen on an executive level of functioning. So for that ruler of the chart to be elevated in Capricorn sextile Neptune, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that there's going to be some new laws that are quickly going to be put into place with Venus in the ninth house. That is a promise that, that's a trine. That means that that's easily going to happen. There are going to be some new rules, some new guidelines, some new restrictions, but it is something that is going to be happening methodically. And the other thing that I know about this, Amy, is that Venus is at 14 degrees of Taurus, so that brings in the next decadent, which is Mercury. So we also have not only Venus ruling the chart, we have Mercury ruling the chart in the 10th house. And so what I get from this is that we all have a voice. We all have a opinion. We all have thoughts about, everyone is thinking a lot about where this is affecting them out in the world. And I would encourage people to, talk to your friends, talk to your communities, gather information. And there is a lot of value in that. There is a lot of value in seeking answers and having your voice heard because of that Mercury, Mercury decadent being a part of the ruling sign. And I do want to say for anybody that's watching this or is going to be watching the recording that this is the birth chart of the next administration. And I think truly that if the inauguration is delayed for some reason tomorrow until after 1 o'clock or after, it's truly in our best interest. Whatever happens there, and it may happen with all those squares. There may be some delays. There may be some challenges that need to be overcome that are underlying. And so I do think that that is actually a positive thing if there is a delay in the inauguration taking place. This is the birth chart. This is, as astrologers, when we look at people's birth charts or the birth chart of a business or the birth chart of a relationship, it tells us all the factors that are present at that time. And I think, Amy, you had talking about Eris a bit, because Eris is configured in this whole this stellium of energy right here. And Eris, can you take that on Eris? Because that's more your expertise.
Yeah, I'm happy to comment on it because it's a 2-year transit that we're having at the very minimum, because Eris takes 500 years to go around the sun. Its orbit is quite eccentric. It goes beyond Pluto and then comes within Pluto. And in this cardinal sign, we've been having Eris in Aries now since about 1922. So that tells you how slow moving it is. And we're bringing in a whole generation now, those souls coming in right now with Eris square Pluto. They are the change-making souls who are here to really put us on the new path that we need to put on. We know squares are challenging to us. We know they're about course correction. And so with Pluto squaring Eris, the course correction is quite massive on the largest possible scales you can imagine, having to do with, in our responsibility for our part on the planet. I do want to touch back onto Venus in Capricorn, because Capricorn is the sign of responsibility. And I think that maybe, I don't know what Biden's comments are going to be in his inaugural speech, but I fully expect that we'll hear him talk about the truth and how much that matters. And I think we're going to hear him talk about personal accountability and the importance of taking personal accountability. And that's that Venus in Capricorn as well, elevated. And even his intention to ask people to wear a mask for 100 days, that too is part of personal responsibility. How are we behaving in a way that is responsible to not only ourselves, but to others, to have the future that we want to build collectively. So that Eris-Pluto square, the last time we had this Eris-Pluto square was in 1918 and 1919 during the last pandemic. And so that's how rare it is. And it's only about once a century that we will have a square like this. And when the virus news of the pandemic hit back in the spring, and I started to realize how serious it was. I was telling people right from the beginning, just wrap your brain around the idea that it's a 2-year event based on the fact that it's correlated with this transit. And so I do consider that we're at the halfway point now with this pandemic.
Yes.
And the evidence is there that by the time everybody is finally vaccinated with their first dose, their second dose, however many boosters they need, it probably will be till the end of this year before we'll know what we're able to do looking forward, instead of being stuck where we are.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, because, Venus in the 9th house is publishing, it is higher knowledge, it's belief systems. Venus is, brings love to wherever it is, but it's going to be in a very controlled, methodical, form. And
Capricorn is very sobering.
Yeah, very, very realistic. And the other thing that I was thinking about with Neptune in Pisces is, and that I'm noticing, is that anybody with Pisces energy right now is really feeling a incredible sense of added sensitivity in anything that they've been suffering through or that they've been unclear about. It's like there's no veils. It's truly like there's no veils between the worlds anymore of the human form and spirit. And I know I have Jupiter in Pisces. Everywhere I look right now, I see spirits around everybody. And I, when I drive at night through the villages, I just want to stop the share here for a second. I live in the villages in Florida, and when I drive at night, I see spirits floating through the air. There's a lot of people, humans, and even animals. Everything on Earth is going through. It's almost like a funneling. Funneling of and I think that for anybody who's Pisces, who is Virgo, or has Gemini or Sagittarius, we are all being triggered from a very, asking us to really be mindful, really be, present in our days and our lives, and just to go slow, because, when you have mutable energy like that, it really can make you feel off kilter. And typically with the way Neptune, the way mutable squares work, is that they ask you to not mutate, but to stay present. That becomes the work. That becomes the challenge. and that becomes the obstacle to overcome. And I think what's happening though for a lot of Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius is that their energy is becoming triggered, and that they're seeing mirrors in other people. I know I am seeing
Yeah.
a lot of
People need to psychically protect themselves with their own robe of light, and whatever mantra or prayer is, lifts your spirit and helps you feel centered. Because, in any storm, there is a calm in the center. And so that's so important, that in this time where so many people are feeling so extremely isolated, and that's a Neptune energy, to feel alienated, isolated, and lost. We all need to stay in touch with our core spiritual self and stay open to that inner guidance. And our dream lives are very active right now. A lot of us are getting lessons and guidance in dream and meditation, and using music can be very, very helpful to, elevate your psyche. And so
and dancing.
Yes. And
yeah,
go ahead.
anything that stimulates the positive aspects of life, anything that gets you out into a place that's blissful, that feeds that to your to you. And there was something, I was at church last Sunday, and the pastor said, and this is what I got out of it, was that God is asking us all right now to love those who've harmed us and to love those we've harmed.
Yeah, to have grace.
Yes, grace and compassion. Neptune is compassion, it's understanding, it's vision, it's imagination, it's dream. So art, any form of art, is going to be supportive.
People understand what the Piscean age, we've been living in the Piscean age for 2,000 years. Well, at this moment, with Neptune in Pisces, squaring those nodes, it feels very much to me, that old cliche saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. As we are shedding the old of the Piscean age and coming into the Aquarian age, it is important to reconnect. Okay, well, what about the Piscean age has value and, can serve us going forward? And it is compassion, it is egolessness, it is selfishness, it is the desire to serve and make a contribution. So I encourage everybody to, just take that to heart and look at yourself in that mirror of your spiritual development and ask, how can I serve? What's greater than me that I can devote myself to? And I think that's the grace we all need to complete the Piscean age.
Yes, and the last time that Neptune was in Pisces in the south, the last time that we had this configuration was in the 1800s, 1853 to be exact, and it was very significant yet very subtle, and we're at 18-19 degrees right now, so we're really at a crossroads, and it can look, and it was interesting, it's very easy to get caught in negativity. I know yesterday I went to the chiropractor, and the nurse said to me, how's your year been? Just as bad as everyone else? And I went, wait a minute, there's been some really tough things, but there's been some wonderful, blissful things. And, to be grateful for every single one of these things that are positive is adding to the positive conjoining of all of us with the Aquarius energy. And Go ahead.
To add to that, particularly about the Neptune squaring the nodes, I think it's about the moment we're in is to look at our personal dreams. I don't mean just the dreams you dream when you go to sleep, but your life dreams. In your dream world, what is it you've dreamed for yourself, for your family, for your community, for the world? And what personal responsibility are we each taking toward manifesting those dreams, because that's what a square will demand. And sometimes even because it is a mutable square, it's not necessarily the actions you take, but how you hold the world in your consciousness, because that's what the mutable signs are about. You know, our ability to envision, to dream, to perceive, to think, and organize ourselves on that inner conscious plane.
Yeah, I think that for people, this is something I do, and I haven't done it yet this year, but I'm going to go to the Dollar Tree, get a big poster board, and put on it what my ultimate goal is for this year. And when you draw it, paint it, cut out pictures of what that looks like to you. We're in a time where we're having the opportunity to slow down so that we can get in touch with that new direction, that we align with what was, the old patterns, the truth of what we've experienced in our lives, and that we align with the past. But when we do that, we just, find peace with it. Find peace with it in whatever way that you feel best in finding peace. But then at the same time, keep your face pointed toward the future and the knowledge and the duality that is present, because there's always two sides to everything.
Right.
That's what Gemini is about. So I think that's a really important thing. So build your vision board. Take this time of slow down to build your, to put those visions on paper or on a vision board of what this next year looks like for you. And I think, also, Amy, when we look, I'm going to share the chart again, and because I think that as we wrap up here, the ultimate goal of this new administration, I think with the North Node trining Mercury, and the North Node squaring Neptune, and there's a lot of other aspects that we see right here, like semi-squares and semi-sextiles. But I think the ultimate goal of this new administration is to talk about, gather information, to see both sides, and they're ultimately going to be a lot of conversation and a lot of new, Gemini is a contract, it's an agreement, it is, it's conversation, it's the media. And so with that, and then in the second house here, I think they're going to be very focused on the suffering of the people and how to overcome that. And also the trine to Mercury is that right away, this administration is very, very clear on what's going to be best for everybody as a whole as we move forward, so that we can all be safe and secure and feel that we're valued, feel that what we have to say is heard.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, I don't know who it was I first heard this from, but it stayed with me. And the saying goes, don't believe everything you think.
Yes.
To me, that's the Gemini North Node being squared by Neptune. Yes. Just because you think it doesn't mean you should believe it. But the trine from Mercury really does feel like a validation that moving forward in this new administration, science is going to hold the day.
Yeah.
And, we're going to be seeing decisions that will be based on facts, based on the truth, based on science. And so that gives me a lot of encouragement.
Yeah. And you know what else I also think? I think that areas like Facebook, Instagram, IG, all these different social networks, there's going to be new ones that are forming because of that Mercury trining the North Node. That's like, this has to take on a new direction. And I thought it might be kind of fun, because I am a practitioner of shamanism, animals are very, very wise. And I was very thankful the other day. I was taking Bunny for a walk in this beautiful big field in front of where I live. And I look up and there's this cow right in front of me with big horns. And I'm going, oh my gosh, it's loose. And I was so scared that it would get in the road, because it was heading toward the road. It was scared. It was lost. And so me and Bunny headed out around the near the road, and we were calling the police as we're doing this, and we kind of slowly walked, and it went the other way to safety. And you know, any animal that crosses your path is there to provide you with insight, with wisdom, because nature is so wise. And
That's very symbolic of the Mars-Uranus conjunction in Taurus.
yes, and so the cow meant everything's going to be okay. Don't worry. I looked it up. So if you want to do, if an animal crosses your path, just do a Google search, put in shamanism, spiritual meaning, and whatever that animal is. And if it's a snake, what kind of snake is that? You know, this was a black cow with horns. It was very young, and it was frightened. So we're, you know, we are at the end of, you know, an age that's completing, and there's new things happening. We should pay close attention to our children and our youth. Very close attention, because Gemini is a very youthful sign. So what I'm going to do, I want to pull I've got these wonderful cards. It took me 3 years to find. This is Animal Wisdom and Messages, and it's by Stephen Farmer. And I'm going to pick a card that is some really nice, beautiful insight for everyone out there. I think that there's a powerful message of positivity that we can leave you all with. And so I'm going to pull a card that is thinking about all of humanity and what our future looks like and what that message is from nature. And I've got a card, and it is the elk.
Okay.
And stand tall. Maintain your dignity no matter what, and others will treat you with the respect that you deserve. And you know, it's looking right at us. Do you see the elk? And it's surrounded by beautiful yellow light. I look at that as divine protection that's present all around us. The blue is emotion, the green is abundance and creativity. So I'm going to read further what that energy means of the elk. And we all need a positive message right now, you know? And the slings and arrows. When you're in a cycle of your life where you have to struggle to avoid feelings of defeat and despair due to the circumstances pressing on you from all sides, you need to literally lift yourself up to your grandest upright posture. Keep your eyes looking straight ahead. Breathe deeply and comfortably. Pull your shoulders back, but not rigid, and plant your feet squarely on the ground. Not stiff and static, but relaxed and fluid, letting your movements be easy and graceful. Even when you're standing still, try slowing down and moving at 90% of your usual speed, keeping your attention in the present moment. Practice this for a few minutes a day, and watch what happens. You'll make more of an impact on others and your environment when you're in your physical and psychic fullness, and your mood and sensitivities will shift accordingly. Standing tall, relaxed, and fully present, you're much more likely to command respect from others. This will help you profoundly in any situation, but particularly during the times when maintaining your self-respect and dignity are the priorities. This isn't pride, but instead a physical expression of strength and power. Make these simple physical adjustments and observe how your thinking and your mood changes to become more congruent with your posture and demeanor. And these are words that are associated with the elk: stamina, agility, strength, unpredictability, majesty, respectfulness, nobility, confidence, courageousness, power, determination, sensitivity, assertiveness, vitality. And that is a very positive note for all of humanity. And I also, before we move, complete the show, I just intuitively want to talk about the sun being between Saturn and Pluto. I look at that as a very protected leader. that is protected by the groups that are very much of like mind. And there are many powers that are, that there are many powers, many very powerful structures that are falling down right now with that Pluto and Capricorn. And those are laws. If Pluto's in the 9th house of that chart, let me put it up again. You see Pluto right here?
And also the Sun conjunct Saturn. Biden is not a young man. Saturn
No.
rules the aging process. So we know that we are getting a leader who is mature, truly mature. I've been saying, the adults are going to be back in charge again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the highest part in any chart, which is like right here, Edgar Casey said, and Isabel Hickey said that the planets closest to the midheaven, and here's the midheaven, is Pluto. So there is decay of the current structures and laws, and that's what Pluto is about. It's about death and transformation and new life. And so whatever's been on the surface is truly falling away. And there is going to be new life. Not yet, but there is going to be new life. It's coming. And, Pluto is going to, in the U.S. birth chart, we never got to that, but that should probably be another show we can talk about. But I do see that these planets closest to the midheaven are the Sun and Pluto. So what's the most powerful that we can see out in the world? What's being highlighted in this chart is the Sun and Pluto, this stellium right here, and Pluto. So Pluto is truly ripping away what was, is ending what was. And
if you think of Scorpio, it's a little snake-like in a way that I don't know if it's annually or more often, but as a snake matures and grows, it has to molt. It has to literally leave its skin behind. And so we're in our own national molting moment where, in order for us to grow, we're going to have to leave behind an old skin that's not serving us anymore. And with Pluto as the ruler of the 7th house of this chart, there is a lot of reaction to what has in the 7th house. This is really more about our international relationships, because in a normal chart, the 7th house would be, your significant other. So I think there's going to be a very strong focus on who are our allies, who are our partners, who are our enemies.
yes,
and really taking the actions that need to be taken in order to come into better alignment. Because with Pluto up at the midheaven, getting clarity about who are our friends, who are our allies, and who are not is going to become a real focus.
And with Venus in the 9th house, the 9th house is foreign land, foreign cultures, foreign belief systems, and we see Venus in Capricorn, which is government, structure, trining the ascendant and sextile the descendant. So there is going to be some really special alliances that we're going to become aware of as we move forward. And I just want to read something, Amy, because the two energies or zodiac signs that are closest to the midheaven here are Capricorn and Aquarius. And I want to, for everyone that's very, hang on a second, I have to get out of this. For everyone that is, there's a lot, the angelic realms are very active right now. And Capricorn, the archangel that's associated with Capricorn is Cassiel. And Cassiel is the angel of temperance. And he loves to teach us to be accepting of others and gently prompts us towards mind expression. Reminds us that while we use only a small portion of our brain, we use a smaller portion of our mind. Cassiel will help us all during this time to connect to our higher self and the unified mind if we so desire. All that is required is that we ask his guidance and direction, and he'll gently help us to understand relationships and experiences from a true perspective, thereby assisting us in creating a more peaceful existence. Archangel Jophiel teaches us that the reality we seem to be a part of is an illusion, and he will help us to go beyond what our eyes and other sensory organs tell us in the aquatic life, specifically dolphins. He uses divine communication and unity just as the dolphin does in the element of water as a conductor or cleanser of worldly thoughts such as fear, guilt, anger, and resentment. He is associated with the crown chakra, which is the energy center that keeps you attuned to the love of God, and his colors are white, gold, and violet. These colors symbolize purity, the Christ within us all, and clarity in hearing our internal teacher, angels, and other spiritual helpers. Both amethyst and diamond crystals vibrate to the energy of Jophiel and will assist us in receiving his messages of true vision and how to come from a separate self to the one self. This self represents the universe and everything in it, unified, willing, and at peace with all of its parts. So to invoke Archangel Jophiel, we can say, Beloved Jophiel, I ask you to please remove all the blocks that I have to the awareness of love's presence. May I come to know and love myself and recognize my true self in everyone to experience a world of peace and love. And the other archangel is Archangel Jophiel, which is associated with Aquarius. And as we can see, there is a lot of Aquarius energy all dancing together up in the midheaven of this chart. And Jophiel's name means beauty of God, and it is February's angel of creativity, beauty, love, and passion. She helps breathe pure loveliness, life, and flow into creative projects such as artwork, interior decorating, design work, and writing. She also assists us in being compassionate and loving to ourselves and others. And we should ask Jophiel to show us ways to increase our confidence and self-esteem, and trust that by healing self-love issues, we inevitably activate the law of attraction in all areas of life. This means that there is a renewed inner love and gratitude that will radiate from us, drawing loving situations and relationships to us. Jophiel also helps us to unclutter our minds and our homes and our offices to help increase energy flow, abundance, and prosperity. Because of this, she is sometimes referred to as the Feng Shui angel. Feng Shui. Deep pink illuminates her aura and vibration, and holding pink tourmaline or pink fluorite in your receiving hand, so whatever your dominant hand is that you receive, this is going to enhance our abilities to attune to her frequency level and divine guidance, and to call upon Jophiel to heal self-love issues. We simply have to say, Archangel Jophiel, please assist us now in rising above all errors I've ever made. I open my heart and awareness to the love that is within ourselves and myself, and in every situation and relationship in my life right now. Love is a choice, and I choose it now. So those two archangels that sit at the right hand of our Creator are very prevalent and very present with us for this next, in the United States, for this next I can't think of the word right now. This new president being put into office. I guess that's the way I would say it.
Andrea, I have an interesting point to add here, and that was quite lovely. I was curious to look up the Sabian symbol for where Mercury is in the inauguration chart, because at 18 degrees 53 minutes, it's just at the tail end of 19 degrees of the Sabian symbols. And the message is a forest fire quenched. And when I was reading this, it actually reminded me a little bit of the moon leaving Aries, because one of the things it says is that sometimes it is best to leave an angry person to themselves and wait for more amenable times to approach. So
Yes.
I like this idea of the forest fire being quenched, you know? Maybe we can all just kind of take a breath and calm down and, you know,
Yep.
just let the embers subside.
Yeah, and you know, with Mercury and Aquarius, Aquarius is very much about strategy. And what is that, you know, a lot of people think Aquarius is a water sign and it's an air sign, and it's ruled by Uranus and Saturn. So there is a spark of intuition that is very prevalent right now. I mean, it's a big spark. It's a big spark.
Yes.
And there's a spark of invention, ingenuity, new forms of technology,
Yeah.
and that with Mercury in that sign, you know, the forest fire, I kind of intuitively thought of that as that this is ingenious. There's a lot of genius energy that's present
That's
with
right.
us, and a lot of people are getting downloads which are very inventive and very much aligned with what's best for humanity. So there, I think there's going to be a lot of inventions in this next 4 years that are going to be very helpful to us on a very practical level, but also a very genius level technology that, I mean, I got a new phone and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I don't know how to use all this, but this is genius. And
Yes.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of very valuable knowledge that we're all, with that Venus in the ninth, that we're all researching that we can use practically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful positive for us to just stay in touch with, that we can all be channels of our own genius and our
Mhm.
own innovation. And we are all reinventing our lives. And I think that's a healthy way to think about where we're at in this pandemic and moving forward. That, you know, not just let's get back to whatever the old normal was, but how would we like to reinvent ourselves and our lives and our relationships?
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, to end the show today, Amy, do you have a prayer from Isabel Hickey that you might think is very prevalent to everyone?
Well, you know, with all this energy in Aquarius, especially the sun coming in, I just want to say as a reminder, something that she said all the time, two things. If we knew better, we would do better. Let's all hope that we can learn and know more and know better this coming year and years, and to recognize that, as she would say so often, consciousness is reality. So if you want your reality to change, look at your consciousness. Where are you allowing it to dwell? Make it where you want it to be.
Oh, that's beautiful. I got God bumps when you started, you know, channeling her
I
her
think she'd be very excited to see the moment that we're in, which she, by the way, predicted. She said back in the 70s, she said there was going to be a time at the turn of the century where we were going to have a lot of people exiting.
yeah.
And that was not a political statement. It had nothing to do with any one, you know, party or person or
Mhm.
country. And so it does give me the humbled feeling that, okay, there is much more to what's going on than any of us can know on a conscious plane. We want to stay tuned and attuned to that inner level of grace and compassion, and you know, be glad we're alive, not to take it for granted, and just stay kind.
You know, I also thought, I remembered this. Isabel Hickey referred to the planets as angels.
Yeah.
Each one of the planets was one of God's archangels, and I know that she was a strong advocate for going into, and this is what she did. She would go into churches and she would befriend the pastors, and she was just very, very aligned with humanity.
Yeah.
And she had so much compassion, and she wanted to explain to people that didn't understand that astrology and looking at the planets and how they are influencing us here on Earth was an angelic type of practice. It's not a belief system, it's reality, because we here on Earth are surrounded by our neighbors are the planets. And so when we look at astrology, it is very much a divine study. It is one that we can use to help each other to understand what our soul's purpose is. So a big thank you.
And Aquarian age is an age of cosmic consciousness.
Yes.
And we see that on a material plane with the ability to communicate with each other through satellite technology, and who knows what else is going to be coming along.
Yes.
So we can be very grateful to be alive at this time and to be a witness to the history and the wheels turning the way they are.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We really are very fortunate. And I do believe that we are not at the end of days. I believe that we're at the end of the age of Pisces, and we are at the portal or the door or the entrance to the age of Aquarius. So, it's just like when a baby's born, you got to go through a dark tunnel to see the light. And we're going through that right now. And so
everything is messy.
It is.
And painful.
We need a lot of midwives.
Right.
Yeah, so everyone, Amy, thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. And everyone out there, please, we want to thank you all for your support and for joining in, and wish you all well and the highest and best good be on your path in this life. And remember, always turn to the stars and you'll find your answers there. And I mean, even beyond that, turn to the light, turn to the sun, and that's the spirit of light that's present for all of us. And thank you everyone for joining today. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful January, and we will see you very soon with the next show. Take good care.
Bye.